Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's installment of Mish's Market Minute. I am your host, Mish Schneider, and I'd like to thank Stock Charts TV for giving me this platform every week. Hopefully you guys did watch last week's, which was all about electric vehicles, because some of the ones that I featured have done extraordinarily well. This week, they all took off. And so the interesting thing is that with Biden last week giving attention to the space, that's what really gave me the heads up. So this week, we're going to go somewhere completely different. Something I had covered about a year ago during the pandemic fell out of favor, and now looks like some of these stocks within the small cap growth stocks are ready to take off. So we're going to look at a whole bunch of small cap growth stocks. But before we do, the actual ETF is VBK. And I like looking at that because it's growth stocks that come from a lot of different US securities. It's basically US centric. And basically, they also are ranked anywhere between the 85th and 90th percentile by market cap. And so what I'm going to feature you today is, of course, the ETF itself, but also some of the top weighted stocks that have the best momentum within that basket. And as I mentioned, unlike IWM, which is 100% in the US, this is 99.94% US with just a small smidgen, 0.06% in Canada. So that means that if the US economy is going to continue to improve, this is a really good place to look back on after it had a major sell-off. In terms of the top sector, technology, 26.51% is the top sector. Healthcare is the second at 23.23%. And if you look it up, I like to go to vbk.com and I look at the ETF. You can get all the information about all the different top stocks. Now, the very top stock in the basket is the Vanguard Cash Management Market Liquidity Fund. That's their top holding, but it only has about 1.5%. So let's move on. I always like to make sure I list to you the symbols that I'm going to cover. I've got 25 here. HB, by the way, means hard to borrow, which means that you can certainly buy and you can certainly sell these for a profit. You just can't go short ones that are hard to borrow. And the hard to borrow sometimes on one platform is there, like in TradeStation, but yet you might be able to sell them in another. But we're not really looking for short opportunities here. We're really looking for good buy opportunities, given the fact that the market has recovered, that small caps are taking over, and small cap growth stocks could be ready to emerge once again. So let's go to the charts. Okay, so we're going to start with actually VBK, and I find this really interesting. It's an extremely thin instrument, by the way. If you take a look at it on a 1-minute chart, it actually kind of trades in dots. But I'm actually sort of surprised at that because it's got so many interesting stocks in it. But nonetheless, right now, what you can see as I'm talking to you, and you will see this 24 hours later, is that it's trying to pierce a downward sloping 50-day moving average, which means we'd be looking for 2 closes. So possibly today on Thursday and then tomorrow on Friday, when you see this, which would make this potentially set up for Monday. But if we take a look here at the real motion, it's still in a divergence in that we're sitting here at the 50, but we're still under the 50. However, the good news is that we are bottoming in momentum and we're clearing this Bollinger Band. And you can see that it's starting to show some leadership here against the benchmark. So I would say that VBK in and of itself is on my list. And something when we come back, I said Monday, but with a long weekend, I meant Tuesday, I would certainly be interested in buying if it's still holding up around these levels. Now, the first stock we're going to cover in this is Rubius Therapeutics, Ruby. Now, some of these we actually have some skin in the game and through our model. This is probably one of them, I believe. And you can see that we have, again, a downward slope in the 50, and we're pushing up right against it. But the momentum is still not great, and certainly it's not showing any leadership. So this makes it kind of easy. if we can actually get back over the Bollinger Band and momentum, at the same time get two closes, let's say over 25.50, then I think you have a pretty good risk to these recent lows to see if this can't get going. And in terms of the whole healthcare biotechnology, I actually have also been watching IBB, which is the biotechnology ETF. And that too has held some critical support at 150. So I would say that the whole biotech space, which has certainly been underperforming the rest of the market, could not only be ready to pick up, but in terms of the small cap growth stocks, Ruby would be high on the list. Okay, next one. We love this stock. We actually took a profit in this stock on Thursday, and that's 3D Systems. Now, 3D Systems, of course, look at that. When we bought it, again, sometimes you wait for the Bollinger Band to clear, and that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you have to wait for the 50. In this case, by the time it cleared the 50 in momentum, we've already taken our profit, as I mentioned before. So that's why I like sometimes, if I'm interested in a stock, I'll look at the Bollinger Band, and at the same time, I'll look to see what happens at the 50. And this was obvious that it cleared the 50, had an inside day, and the next day struggled again, and then boom, this thing took off. Now, we bought it ahead of that. We actually bought it on this day right here at 21.65. But nonetheless, even if you were waited for the full confirm on a phase change, you still would have had about $6 to $7 in this trade right now with a limited risk, and you too would be taking a profit. Looking forward, of course, now to see if it accelerates, we also want to see this momentum clear this Bollinger Band, and you can see that DDD has strong leadership here. I do believe we can get to 35. I actually believe if the market holds up, DDD can head up to 50, so we're still holding our position even though we took some partial profit. Next one I know we also have skin in the game is Matador, and this is in the oil and gas energy sector. And you could see, again, it's just now clearing in the real motion momentum indicator over the 50 while this thing has accelerated. So I wouldn't necessarily be buying here at these points as we're into resistance. But if we clear over the resistance, say over 31, it could be interesting, but I'd want to see, again, the Bollinger Band here clear in terms of the momentum, and you could also see that we're showing some leadership. So a little bit of a negative divergence on a stronger stock. That wouldn't be my first choice, as so far I like Ruby and BBK much better. DDD, of course, already moving on. Next is RVLV. And this is consumer discretionary, which is also obviously a part of the basket for BBK. And look what's happened here. This too also took off over the 50, and yet the momentum is just now trying to hit that 50-day moving average. Although when it cleared the Bollinger Band and the 200-day moving average, which is the green line in the real motion indicator, that was really the signal to get in right here. So this is another one that's doing well, has to clear 60, and at the same time also has to clear this 50-day moving average in real momentum. And you can see most likely when that happens, this will take a real leadership role in terms of the actual leadership. Next one is PDCE. Again, in the energy and exploration space. And this too, sitting right underneath the Bollinger Band. I mean, excuse me, but it's actually squeezed between the two Bollinger Bands. It's sitting right on top of the 50 as this has cleared the 50. So this too looks interesting, but at this point, I would also want to see the 43.38 clear. And at that point, you could probably risk just to around under 40 or these recent lows right here to see if this thing has more momentum. And what's so interesting about the oil and gas, particularly the oil market, is that we have a situation where there's been a lot of negative press again with Exxon coming out and saying that they're not going to be looking at traditional oil and gas. They want to move on from there. And yet, if you look at the price of oil right now, it's still holding up and looking very, very strong. Okay, next one is OII. Oceaneering, another one. So lots and lots of setups here as the strongest performers. This is over the 50, so that's a good thing. It's over the 50 here. Still slightly divergent because the peak momentum here was when the price was not that much higher from the price here. So we still haven't seen great momentum in this stock, but I do like this if it gets over 15 potentially, and I would probably risk to maybe underneath this low here at 13.26. So if you can get about $1.75 of risk, then you know you're looking for about 350 if it takes out these highs. And the way this chart looks and the way the leadership is sort of hanging in there and the momentum could increase, that would be another one that would not be the worst thing to keep your eyes on. Another one that's going to be in the oil space here is ChampionX. And look what's happened here. Again, momentum not nearly matching the price, but this is just about to make new highs at 27.10. If it could take that out, it's going. So again, this would all be a matter of risk. Takes out 27.10, you could probably look to risk to under 24.25. Not the best risk reward, but you really be banking on this going to new highs. I think OII might be a little bit more interesting. Next one is WOW. And this is technology. So there you go. It's Wideopenwest. First of all, great name for a stock. Wow. And yet we can see the momentum is just now clearing the 50 after we've cleared the 50 here and getting into some level of leadership. So this to me looks pretty clear. At this point now, you really want to see it get over 1706. You could either risk to 1450 if you want to keep it as a swing trade, or you can then risk even tighter, maybe under 15 here. So I like this one too. This is, like I said, 1706. I'm actually going to write this down. Of course, it's always good to check the volume on these. You really don't want a volume that's a lot less than, say, 350,000 shares a day. But I think that this one has good potential too. I'm not really sure. It says telecom equipment. I've been really big into the telecommunications space by watching Viacom lately. We had a big trade in that earlier in the year, which is one that I had featured to you a while ago. Now it's back trying to break out of a base. Next one here is STAA, Staar Surgical. So we're back in the biotech space. Look what happened to this one today. So this one has gone on its own and is now breaking out to new all-time highs. And the momentum, you see how I'm liking this Bollinger Band here. The Bollinger Band lining up with the 50-day moving average is pretty powerful. And so once this broke out here, you still had now a little bit more of an opportunity, but a little bit more risk. So now that we're on new all-time highs, I wouldn't be chasing it. Why? Look at the momentum. When it was much lower, momentum was better. Momentum is actually, although accelerating, has to really clear it in order for this thing to keep going. But what is interesting is that you can see, I've shown you now several times, that when the Bollinger Band and the 50-day moving average line up, you don't necessarily have to wait for the real motion indicators to clear both of the moving averages, or you could wind up missing the boat. The next one here is NTLA. This is Intellia Therapeutics. So now we're looking here at some of the stronger supporters, stronger performers in the biotech space. What's interesting here is you cross the 50, and as I'm talking to you, it's back below. So you really want to see two closes above the 50-day moving average. And remember, since we just talked about that Bollinger Band, you really want to see this real motion indicator hold the Bollinger Band. If by the time we come back from vacay on Tuesday, it's back over the Bollinger and we can get one or two closes above this 50, I would actually think that this could be Intellia Therapeutics. I don't know what they do, but I think this might be, along with the biotech space, something of interest. Next is an oldie but goodie. This is Crocs. Man, we were buying Crocs at $15. It's hard to believe that it's trading up at 101. What I don't like about this right here is that you had a new high and a reversal pattern. Remember, we talked about that. And generally when that happens, it makes about a 10% move down. Now this did, but I would still be somewhat hesitant to get involved unless it took all of this out. However, I would also say that I'd be very cautious here, given not only the momentum is declining, but it's also losing its leadership role. So Crocs might have seen its day at this point. This would be something, again, I'd interesting that it gapped up, has been consolidating, and if it gets through, can continue. But until that happens, I would probably stay uninvolved. Next one is one I know we're also in. And this is MicroStrategy. So MicroStrategy is interesting because this is blockchain connected. Now, this thing really fell apart, but you did have a reversal pattern on the 200 in that you made a new 60-day low, and it confirmed the next day. So this could be bottoming out. What would we like to see in momentum? Is we would like to see the momentum clear back over the Bollinger Band. If this does, and we are trading back over, say, this high here at 500, between 500 and 502, you could pick your risk factor, but that would tell me that the blockchain technology plays like MicroStrategy, like Marathon, which was looking like it was going up and now is having some trouble. And then looking at some of the things like Ethereum, that could be getting ready to move back up again, but we're not quite there yet. Next one is INGN, another healthcare medical equipment. Big consolidation back under the 50-day moving average in real momentum and certainly not showing any leadership. So I would like to see this maybe get back down closer to 60, and then we'd see what happens here. Or we need to see that momentum clear the 50-day moving average. So good consolidation, but not high on the list. And I like showing you ones that are setting up and ones that may not be setting up, because this way I'm training your eye to look at the difference between one that is in consolidation that looks like it could break out versus consolidation that looks like it could break down. And right now at this peak high, this really to me looks more like a breakdown than a break up. Okay, FOXF is the next one. Fox Factory. I'd never even heard of this company, but it's consumer discretionary. Now this too, we start with real motion. It's trying desperately to get back over that 50 as we've been here over the 50 in the price, but we keep getting these lower highs. And so that doesn't really interest me until we either take out this high here or even more conservatively, 164.69, this high here. But we better be seeing some momentum here. This is a very high price stock, so I would look at also to see what it is that this company creates. Next one is SONO. And again, we're back now into technology. So that's where I would like to focus. So let's take a look. We're under the 50. We're under the Bollinger Band. We don't have to wait for the 50, but we're starting to show some leadership. If SONO can show us that it can get back over the Bollinger Band and hold around 35, this could be something that we would be looking at to clear the 50-day moving average. So SONO is another one that I would write down as one to keep an eye on as we get into next week. And COHR is another technology company, Coherent. Now, what's so interesting about this is really showing weak momentum while it's consolidating and sitting right here on the 50-day moving average. So again, let's wait for some sign for momentum to improve over the Bollinger Band. And even if we had to pay up a little bit for this, let's say over 265, 266, you will have a really tight stop against the 50. It's kind of like what I like to say about Tesla. When you get these stocks that are expensive and you can get under $5 in terms of risk, then you can get a tremendous amount of reward. And so all we have to do with this one is wait for this to get over that Bollinger Band. And then I would use the 50-day moving average as a risk. And I'd probably say, let's wait for this to get through this 265. $5 risk and something like this. Yeah, definitely good. Okay, next one is 4. And Shift4 Payment System, another technology company. Now, this doesn't have enough information to give us the Bollinger Band. I mean, not to give us the Bollinger Band, but to give us, Bollinger Bands or any moving averages here. So in this case, we have to say that it's showing leadership, and I'd like to see a little bit more leadership coming. And we've cleared the 50-day moving average. So on Monday, or excuse me, Tuesday, if this is trading over 95.42, again, you have an opportunity to risk to about 91, and that too could be an interesting opportunity. Now, another one I've traded, I know this is thin, but I really like this. This is Beam Therapeutics. Again, clear the Bollinger Band, not quite the 50, but getting a confirmed return to bullish phase as I'm talking to you with an inside day, which means if this gets over 80, again, you have a good opportunity to risk to under the low of this day, which would be 73.50. So a $6.50 risk on this kind of stock. If this is going to go up, this looks pretty good as well. I will warn you, though, that there's a low volume stock. Now, the next one really interests me because it's in the gaming space. This is Boyd Gaming, and I was happy when I saw this came up. So now, again, we just have to clear this Bollinger Band. We're getting our second close over the 50. Once again, if this continues to hold over 63, come Tuesday, and this starts to increase in momentum, then Boyd Gaming might be an interesting stock to look at, maybe even one of my favorites looking at right here. So that's another one to keep your eye on. STL is banking situation. And in the banking stocks right here, you've got this one really tackling new all-time highs. Now, banks have been strong, but the momentum is so I wouldn't necessarily be chasing this one. However, if you don't care about momentum, or you say, hey, at least it's over the Bollinger Band, at this point, at least you want to see it take out all these recent highs over 27, and you don't have a bad risk to the 50-day moving average. Next one here is FIX, Business Support Systems. Now, this is interesting. Cleared the 200, even though we're well above it in price, but not the Bollinger Band, as again, we touched down on the 50 and holding. I would say with this one, I would wait a little bit more for momentum to kick in, especially since we did fill the gap, which is good on this day, but I'd still like to see this take out, let's say 82.25, and see this momentum get back over the Bollinger Band. And that's why it's really good to have these momentum indicators. Just a few more left here. SSP, Scripps, this is in the communication and publishing business. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Again, over the 200, so is it here, and nowhere, well, actually clearing the Bollinger Band. We do have a bit of a negative slope here in the 50, so we'd want to see some slope neutralization and maybe a move back over, say, 22. And if we get over 22, you have a good risk to under 21. This would be something I might take a shot in as well if you're interested in this SSP. This is a stock you don't hear talked about very much, but I kind of like the situation here on the charts. Okay, a couple more left. Apps. I like this digital turbine, again, software with wind energy. So I love looking at this VBK basket here. So interesting, needs to just go one more tick higher here in momentum. And then I think we could possibly see a good buy opportunity. At least I would either wait for the 50-day moving average to be taken out, or if you wanted to get in before, like I said, wait for a little bit momentum. This is showing some leadership against the benchmark, which is a good idea. Maybe if I had to wait for a number underneath the 50, I'd wait for it to clear, let's say 67. Over 67, I wouldn't necessarily risk all the way to 200, but I would want to see it hold 60. And the last one is one I wrote an article about. I've been talking about on the media. I'm calling this the lipstick trade, and that's Revlon. As people are demasking, they're going out and buying cosmetics, as they should. And so here with Revlon, you're now, look, you cleared the 50 in momentum. You have one more little obstacle here with the Bollinger Band, and you cleared the 50 here in price after the second day. And today it's setting up nice. I don't think you missed the boat on this one. I would say looking at it for next week, if it clears 13.15, you can use 11.50 as your risk. We want to see the momentum. And this has potential to visit back up to 17.50, maybe even get to 20. I think the whole idea of the makeup industry is good. So what's so interesting here about all of this is that when you're looking at the small cap growth stocks, This is really a situation here where you want to see the small cap growth stocks start to participate along with the Russell 2000, because what it's telling you is that these United States stocks, just like in the Russell 2000, are ready to go. It's good for the economy and certainly can make for some very profitable trades as we go into heading into June and the summer months here in the market. So I hope this was helpful to you. Lots of picks. If you have any questions, of course, you can always see me at Market Minute on Twitter. In the meanwhile, I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks so much.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with Stock Charts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.